welcome to the something more fun, abstract, but really intuitive kind of a work. And I was working on these pieces, really fun pieces to be basically learning. And so this is what we're going to learn today. We're going to learn the art of making colorful abstracts with a little bit of representational pieces, right? And I'm going to teach you one painting with a warm color scheme, and that's how it's going to be structured. Hi, so welcome to Supplies and Materials. So I am basically a mixed media artist working majorly in acrylics, and today I'll just go through the paints that I will be using for this. There is no pressure on the kind of brand that you want to use, the kind of paints that you want to use. I would suggest gouache or acrylics because that is how you'll get the texture of this art, and that is my only suggestion. I don't have any particular suggestions on the brands. So I use Liquitex sometimes. I also have local Indian brands like Camel, and I also have Taiwanese brands which are something that I don't know, but they are really good in their quality. So the colors that we will be using for this painting, and let me just take you back to the painting. This is the painting. The colors that we will be using are vermilion. Almost finishing up with this one. This is portrait pink, so any kind of pink, or you can mix your color like white and vermilion will make a nice pink. And then I have my lemon yellow, which is basically cadmium yellow that we will be using. You can use a lemon yellow as well. There are parts of green, that is olive green here. And obviously I'm also using blue, which I'm using Prussian blue here. So basically a combination of the warm and the cool color scheme. Also white, always white. So yes, these are the paints. Now coming back to the mixed media. So I have these Posco pens, which are basically acrylic pens. I also have these oil pastels, and these are in the brand Symbolian. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but these are the pastels. I also sometimes work with my son's pastels because I really love them. Just if you're testing your pastels, if you're buying pastels and you want to test them, then a good idea is to just see how they are. If they're smooth and if they give a very creamy buttery texture, then they work really well. Okay, apart from this, I have to show you my brushes. So I don't use any particular brand, but I do like to use a square brush. So most of my brushes in this painting, in fact all my brushes are square brushes, because that's how you get the texture. So these are the brushes that I have used. They are in different sizes, and middle size and then smaller size, but that really depends on the size of your paper as well. I also love to use these IKEA brushes. They're one of my favorites. Whenever I go to IKEA, I just buy them, and I know they're available globally, so I would really recommend them. They're by no ways kids brushes. They are lovely to use. Okay. In terms of paper, this is an acrylic paper, like a acrylic sheet, like a normal paper for acrylic painting, and it's a very thick sheet because our paint is going to be thick, so we have to make sure that we have a very thick sheet of paper. So these were the supplies, of course, apart from water, a damp, a rug, basically to wipe your brushes, and then a palette. Of course, I use these kind of palettes, which are basically palette papers, so I can just leave them and throw them away once they're done. So that's the kind of palettes I use. And I think the next step in this course is basically I'll go and I'll show you some of the inspiration, and I'll show you something about colors, which will be a quick study of how you can learn to understand what kind of colors you like, and it will be a good homework that you can do before you start this particular. So finally, let's get to painting. Before that, let me show you these lovely abstracts that I have made. Okay, they are very easy studies, just basically colorful works that was very less strenuous and very happy and colorful for me. So that's what we're going to be working on today, and let's get started on this. I fixed upon this floral bird abstract because I just felt it's easy, much more easier than any of them. And I felt because it's a representational piece, it will be easy to make. It's a very nice thing for something like a card or something like a beautiful framed artwork that you can just put up on your wall. So here I am with my warm color schemes. I have a purple, which if you don't have, you can easily make. And I also have white with me. Now this is a palette sheet, and what I have done is I have first put in all the colors here.
And as you can see, I mix and merge my colors. The base for this is going to be very abstract. It's going to be a mix of a lot of colors and shades, which I showed in earlier. But the idea is to be very abstract and very organic with it. So we don't want to create the perfect ombre effect. Rather, we want to create the imperfect effect. So we're going to sometimes make the shades, sometimes we're going to pick up directly from the tube. Like you will see in the images ahead, I will pick up directly the purple shade that I use for making the base. And then I do everything wet on wet. Now, the idea on wet is that when you put wet paint near the next wet paint, it just merges in and creates these lovely brush marks. Now, when you create these lovely brush marks, they have this visual effect on you, basically, which is very organic, also a little bit imperfect. And that is the effect I really want to create. I want to create something that is far from perfect. And the reason why one of these courses, I love creating these kind of courses, is it forces out the perfectionist from us, right? When we force out the perfectionist, we get in the person who is more creative, who's more gullible, and who's ready to make mistakes. I now went in with my cool tone, sorry. So the cool tone is I want to make the bird. And you see, my complete surface is still wet. So I'm lifting up my hand and I'm creating this really organic shape of the bird. The idea is I first create the body, then I create the head, and of course, I then make sure that the bird has an effect of how a representational bird actually looks. You can see the base is my bird is actually picking up the color of the base as well. So that's essentially the idea. We are creating work that is wet on wet. It's organic. It's easy to make mistakes in this kind of work. And if you're the kind of perfectionist who doesn't feel comfortable in this kind of an activity, then you can wait for things to dry and do it slow step by step. That is also perfectly fine. It's very different. Our nature, basis our nature, we like to make art in the same way. So that's what we are going to try to create. Now, I just added yellow to the blue and I'm creating the leaves. And for creating the leaves, I'm just holding the brush completely straight at a 90-degree angle and just creating something that looks like a leaf, not necessarily something with a thin brush with an exact shape of a leaf. This is something which is more organic and abstract and it's really not forcing yourself to create something that looks exactly like a textbook leaf. So you can see that I'm also picking up colors from the base and that's happening organically. Like I'm not really trying and testing to do that. Now, this is the first session, and this is how we have just completed the first part of the painting. And I will continue to do the same thing as I keep going on. I'm going to add in splatters in the end. And that is something very personal. I like if you feel this is how it is complete, then you cannot add it. But if you feel that you want to add it, then of course you're welcome to. So essentially, this was my wet piece, and I know it can be a little tough for all of us to make it, but let's go ahead and see how we end the final piece. Hello and welcome to the next part. So basically, we have our backdrop is completely dry and we have completed it. And now we go in with a small flat brush. Now this is I think a size 8 or a size 9. And I have gone ahead and I'm now going to detail this further. By detailing it, I mean I'm going to put in the darker marks and basically the outline that I've already created in terms of the birds. I'm going to go and add more further details to it to suggest a darker shape, size, and a representational image. So I've gone in with making some highlights. So basically, just imagining a pair of lights probably coming on the bird. So if you think of it as a three-dimensional object, but you don't want to give it a representational feel, then the idea is to create lights and darks at some point of time. So the good thing is to imagine a source of light. For me, it's on the left hand side in the extreme right is what I'm imagining the source of light to be. So obviously part of the bird is white that's facing the light and then there's more darker shades and I've tried to create more detailing within that. Now the reason I have kept this video at the same speed as what I'm painting is because I wanted to focus on the fact that this is a very easy activity to do. Okay, and if you see, I have made the complete detailing of the painting under 5 minutes. And so I feel like it's a very easy, intuitive practice that you can use for making artwork. So the Next step is basically what you see is I'm just putting in some details of the leaves. Now here, alternatively, what you could do is you could go over the leaves with the small brush and make the leaves properly in the exact shapes. That's not something that I generally like to do. So I have not done. I have just put some marks further. But if that is something that you would like to do, then I would highly recommend it. Going ahead, I have picked up yellow, blue, and I'm just adding different floral elements. Now, what this would mean, I wouldn't be able to put a name on it, but essentially, I'm looking at adding some kind of details, which includes organic shapes, metamorphical shapes, suggesting a flower, suggesting a tree, or suggesting a branch. Nothing which is very strongly suggestive of a particular shape or any kind of natural element. I now go in with the mixed media. So the next part of the video, you'll see me using a lot of mixed media. These are basically acrylic pens. They're from Posco, and I love to use them over dried acrylic artwork. They're easy to use and they also work very well, and they have these beautiful shades which are luminescent and fluorescent, and they always look nice when you add them to the artwork. Now, I'm very loose with the way I hold my pens, and that is something that is specific to my art style, though I do believe it is something that you could add, or probably you could do something like a detailed work, right? You could even do something exactly opposite. And the next step, what I'm doing here is basically I am doing a repetitive step of making small lines. And essentially, what this is called as mark making, where you just add a singular mark to the painting, and which is just in conjugation, so it's one after another, and it's just a way of adding more, like balancing your composition, resolving your composition, adding more details to your compositions and such. Right, so I went ahead and now I've started with my pastels, which I showed earlier. And here again, it's just about making these organic shapes that look like leaves or textures or trees that I have tried to add in further. Going ahead, as we keep moving and as we keep working on this, I will just add the finishing details. Now, these finishing details are like the eyes of the bird. I'm also going to go add and add the splatters, which is something that's very specific to me and I love to add them. I've just added some highlights. Now, is there a way to do this? Probably no. Can I put this in paper? Probably no. But yes, I can just share that this is more intuitive and more feeling based versus something that I can put on paper and say, take these 5 steps to achieve this similar painting, right? And I think that offers you a lot of more freedom to do work that is more intuition based versus something that can be said, okay, do these 4 steps and follow it as is to make a realistic artwork. So, this is different, and I will encourage you to use your creativity and your intuitive skills to just work on it and help yourself understand how this artwork will look. So, this artwork is now complete, and I feel like this was the final detail that I added. And then, of course, I played with the older pieces just to see what looked nice and what I really, really liked, and that's about it.
I hope you had a lovely lesson and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you didn't take a lot of stress working on it. So I wanted to show the final artwork. It's a little wet, but I wanted to kind of show it. This is how it looks, right? Um, I do think it looks good. There are a couple of changes that I could have made, but I wanted to be true to the practice and just show it till what I have done. But I do think I would like to do some outlines. But this is a really pretty abstract that I worked on and I really enjoyed working on it. So you can also do something in which you're finishing the palette. Let's say you've taken a lot of paint in this palette and you want to finish it up. So I'll just show you something I made with the finished palette. So I made this with my palette. So it's like a pretty abstract, but no representational piece, but just like finishing up my colors. And this is something you can really do because it really helps your practice. Again, it becomes like a color study, right? I would like to really remember this combination, especially this one, how I made it and what I did. And then you can hang it on your studio or you can remember it for yourself, take a photograph of it, make a collage of it so that you remember it when you go to make your next painting. Finally, I hope you enjoyed the session to understand the whole process. If you have any more questions, just ping me in the comments, or you can. And I hope this process helps you let loose and lets you understand a little bit of your intuitive process and lets you connect with something deeper. See you.